Welcome back to Empower Yourself. Today we will learn about complaints as it is one of the important topic. Here we will learn about the introduction and how the complaints can be classified and how the complaints has to be handled in the pharmaceutical industry. The complaint word itself talk about the defects or the dissatisfaction is observed when it is used or when it is at the customer end. Complaints are indications of dissatisfaction with quality, performance, or a defect after a drug product or substance has been released for distribution. So here it says the complaint is received whenever there is a dissatisfaction is observed with the quality or the performance or defect to the product that has been released for distribution. So complaint is one of the excellent post-marketing surveillance indicator. So here the surveillance says that it is one of the way that we can observe the behavior of the product. So complaints will help in such a way that how our product is behaving after the product is being released into the market. A complaint could lead to rectifying or changing the manufacturer systems. Complaints do not only refer to the drug product or substance but also to its labeling and packaging. So complaints helps the manufacturer to rectify or change his systems, how it has to be handled. And the complaint not only refers to the product but also how it has been packed and the labeling condition of the product can also be considered as complaints. Complaints may or may not have significant impact on the health of the patients. So the complaints that has been received from the customer or at the consumer end, those complaints may have or may not have impact upon the health of the patient. So complaints may be received from various sources, either verbally, in written form, or by electronic means, along with samples, photographs, and or evidences depicting the defect. So the complaints can be received in either form, either verbally or in written form or in electronic form. So in cases where we can get the photographs or the samples or any evidence related to the product whenever we are receiving the complaint. The source of complaints may be the patient, healthcare professionals, regulatory agencies, qualified pharmacists, trade sources, distribution chain personnel, or any other source. So the complaint can be received from the patient or from the healthcare professional or regulatory agencies or from the pharmacist or any distributing personnel. So these could be the ways the complaint can be received from. Let us see the classification of the complaints. Complaints can be classified into one of the following by the person handling it. So whoever the person handling the complaints, so he has to classify based upon the classification that has been given. So the complaints can be classified into critical, major, and minor. Critical complaints. Critical complaints are those complaints about defects which impact the quality of the product and affect the patients. So a critical complaint can be the complaint where it is impacting the quality and it is having the effect upon the patient as well. Here are some of the examples: the product mix-up, contamination and microbial growth, wrong labeling, wrong expiry date mention, presence of metallic or glass contamination, serious adverse reactions leading to death. So here, these are the cases when a complaint is received in a particular way where the examples are interlinked. So such a type of complaints can be considered as critical complaint. So here it is clearly seen that it has to be categorized as critical because product mix up. One product is mixed with the other product. So it creates a very huge impact when it is taken by the patient. So these complaints when they are received, so it has to be categorized in a proper way. So wrong labeling. So if you are giving the labeling in an improper way, it can lead to some of the major impact on the patient's health. So even in some cases it can lead to the death. So the product misses or wrong labeling or any other contamination or any other complaint which is critical can lead to the death of the patient too. Major complaints. Major complaints are about defects that reduce the suitability of use of a dosage form for its intended purpose. So here the major complaints can be the cases where the dosage form is not intended for the purpose and it is not giving the results exactly as we needed. The examples include gross damage to the packaging. So the packing material has been damaged in a major way, not meeting the specification, texture change. That means there is a change in the description of the product. Wrong consignment delivery. So delivery of one product instead of the X product. Contamination and microbial growth due to defective supply chain. Temperature excursions during transportation. So all these are some of the examples of the major complaints. Minor complaints. Minor complaints may not have a significant impact or likely to impact on patient safety or product quality. So the complaints that doesn't have and may or may not have impact upon the patient safety as well as the product quality. Such a type of complaints can be classified into minor complaints. The examples include tearing of the label contents. That means the contents that have been provided upon the label are not properly intact or it has some of the data has been removed from the label. Denting of the containers, so a little bit of damage or denting has observed on the containers. Missing of the leaflets or multiple copies of the same leaflet. So during the dispatch or during the distribution, some of the leaflets have been missed, which gives information related to the product, or multiple leaflets of the same product has been kept in the cartons or the containers. So all such a type of complaints can be considered as minor complaints. Handling of complaints. Stages of handling complaints. Receipt of complaint, categorization of complaint, notification to regulatory agency, initiation investigation, receipt and handling of samples, risk assessment and CAPA, closure of complaint, trending, historical review. Receipt of complaint. So whenever a complaint is received, the complaint will be forwarded to the quality assurance department, and the quality assurance department is responsible to gather all the information related to the complaint, which includes the name of the product, the batch number, the quantity, type of the complaint, and the name of the complainant. So all the information has to be collected by the quality assurance department. So based upon the type of the complaint and the nature of the complaint that has been received from the complainant, it has to be categorized as critical, major, or minor. Based upon the nature of the complaint, it can be notified to the regulatory agency, or it may not be notified to the regulatory agency. So based upon the type of the complaint, the investigation has to be initiated. The investigation has to be initiated along with the cross-functional team. The investigation includes verification of the data of the particular batch, the stability samples, raw data, analytical data, BPR, and all the related information that is related to the product has to be gathered, and a preliminary investigation report has to be prepared by the quality assurance department based upon the investigation that has been carried out. So based on the investigation, if there is any requirement for the information from the customer end, those can be collected either in the form of the photographs or in the form of the analytical data that has been generated at the customer end, or the samples from the customer end. So from all the investigation results, based on the nature and the type of the complaint, a risk assessment has to be carried out. The risk assessment has to be generated in such a way whether it is impacting the patient health or it is having any impact upon the quality of the product. So based upon all those things, proper and justified CAPA has to be prepared. After the completion of all the investigation, the complaint can be closed. So if there is any requirement that in a case where the customer is not satisfied, then we can go with the joint discussion or investigation, or we can go with the joint analysis where a satisfactory result is being received by the customer. So after all the satisfactory result, the complaint can be closed. Later, based on the SOP that has been defined by the particular organization, the complaints can be trended. So the type of the complaint, and are there any repeated complaints that have been received in a year or in the particular period. So all this can be trended and they have to be maintained and they have to be stored in the organization. And we can go through the historical review. The historical review includes whether any complaint that has been similar to the particular complaint that has been received, or what are the actions that have been taken, and are the actions are in an effective way, and all those things have to be verified. So let us see one of the example related to the major complaint that includes the temperature excursion during the transportation. So during the transportation of the product from the manufacturer to the customer, the data logger is being placed to monitor the temperature during the transportation. So during the transportation, whenever the manufacturer is dispatching the material or releasing the material to the customer, a data logger will be placed which will help in tracking the temperature during the transportation. So the temperature will be recorded until the customer opens it and the data logger is stopped. So during which we can record the fluctuations in the temperature or whether it is being maintained in the way that the product temperature is being established. So if there is any case where the temperature is moved, or where it is seen that the temperature is more than the temperature that has been established, then we would receive the complaint from the customer saying that the, there is a temperature excursion that has been observed from so and so temperature and so time period. So all the details has to be gathered from the customer. In a case, we have to verify that is there any data available for the complaint that has been received, and we have to prepare the preliminary investigation report. So if my product stability condition is 25 to 30 degrees, then during the transportation, if it has reached the 35 degrees or 40 degrees, then if I'm not having the data that has been available for 30 to 40 degrees, and what I do is that I go with the studies. I go with the experimental studies, taking the information that has already been established. So what I do is that I will collect the data from the customer. So what is the temperature that has been reached, and what is the time period, and what is the way, what is the means of transportation, and what are the stopping positions or dispatch positions, departure areas, and the storage areas that it has been stored. So all these conditions will be considered during the investigation of the complaint. So once I receive all the information from the customer, then I go with the experimental studies by keeping the product as per the stimulated conditions in the storage conditions, including 30 to 40 degrees for a particular period of time. So based upon the investigation and the experimental studies, I would get the results and I would share the results to the customer saying that my product is stable even in such a condition, or it is not stable. So either case, it may or may not be stable. So based upon the experimental studies, I would get some of the information. In a positive way, it is stable, and in a negative way, it is not stable at the higher temperature. So I would go with the risk assessment, and then I would go with the CAPA, saying that I would look into the conditions that have been mentioned and the temperature that I have been provided to the product. So all this will be considered, and finally I would give a proper justification for the excursion that has been occurred. So in such a way I would give a justification to the customer, so that it would be satisfactory to the customer, and then I would close the complaint. So this is how I would handle the complaint, and it has been described in a brief form. Coming to the references, we can get the information of the complaint in ICH Q7 Schedule M 21 CFR Part 210 and 211. I hope the complaint topic has been helpful to you and it has given you some knowledge, and it has helped you a lot. Thanks for watching and learning. Do share your thoughts so that it will be helpful to others. Thank you.